Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, I just want to briefly explain why I support this bill and why I'm a sponsor of this bill. In North Carolina, our state constitution requires us to balance the state budget. And it's worked very well for us here. Unfortunately, the federal government has not done the same. And I'll direct your attention, if you're so inclined, to the U.S. debt clock. If you want to look at your device, the website is usdebtclock.org. You can see there that the national deficit is over $31 trillion. The debt per citizen is over $94,000. The debt per taxpayer is over $246,000. Deficit spending is increasing. And then the trend line is alarming. In 1960, the U.S. federal debt to GDP ratio was 53%. In 1980, it was 35%. In 2000, it's 59%. And today it's 120%. And there's no abatement in sight. What was it that Einstein said? Doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result is insanity. And I think that's kind of where we are now. The Committee for a Responsible Budget is a bipartisan organization. And they've come together, Republicans and Democrats, and they've looked at the current trajectory. And they've detailed why it's alarming, why something needs to be done about it. And I'm going to read some of that to you. Number one, it threatens economic vitality. The recent surge in deficit spending has contributed to rapid near-term inflation and over time will result in higher interest rates, slower economic and income growth, and a small but increased risk of financial crisis. Number two, it places a strain on the budget. The federal government currently spends as much on interest payments as it does on most of our safety net programs combined, and interest is projected to become the largest government expenditure within the next 30 years. As interest and mandatory spending dominate a greater share of the budget, our government's ability to invest in new priorities will be limited. Number three, it creates geopolitical challenges. With large portions of our debt held by foreign investors, a substantial share of our national income goes abroad. We are consequently left with fewer financial tools to manage conflicts with other countries when they have increased leverage over our country. Another point that they cited is that it makes responding to new emergencies more challenging. High deficits and debt, particularly if coupled with high inflation or interest rates, make it hard to borrow in response to recession, pandemic, war, or other legitimate emergency. And perhaps the most important reason that this is a real problem is what it's doing to future generations. I mean, you think about the children of today, and we're saddling them with this burden. It's just simply not sustainable. And so that's the number one reason why I support this bill, and I appreciate Representative Dennis Riddell for his steadfast support for this. I think something's got to be done. In fact, I know something has to be done. I think we all know that. But if you look at what the federal government has been doing and what Congress has been doing, they're not solving the problem. And I would submit that members of both parties are to blame. We've had Democratic majorities, we've had Republican majorities, we have Democratic presidents, we've had Republican presidents, and this trend continues. An Article 5 convention states, as Representative Riddell discussed, it's a perfect way for the states to step up and take control of the situation. And I know there's some concern, some people have talked about the potential of a runaway convention. I really don't see how that's possible. I'm going to tell you why. Number one, we can prescribe to delegates what they can and cannot do when they get there. And number two, whatever they come up with has to be ratified by 38 states. And at the end of the day, this country, United States of America, we're only as good as our people. We're only as good as the states. I submit to you that this country's not going to tear apart the Constitution or do anything that's going to be antithetical to our Constitution, because whatever we come up with is going to be a positive outcome for this country, because it's going to have to be ratified by 38 states. I think that's a very thorough and safe procedure that we can trust. That's why I support this. I also support the term limits for Congress as well. I voted for that. But if you're concerned about the debt, if you're concerned about the deficit, I would ask you to ask yourself a question. Do you really think that Congress is going to do something about it? If the answer is no, and I believe the answer is no, then I would urge you to vote in favor of this resolution. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.